Giovanni's back and he's got the Shadow Giratina in that last spot right now. But whether you're pretty new or a seasoned trainer in Pokemon Go, I've got the strategies to help you win. Most of these principles that we teach in this video are actually ones that you can take with you to any Team Go Rocket fights in the future for the most part. So for today and for these purposes, I've kind of said that the account on the left could be considered the expert. It's level 40. And the account on the right, we've deemed it a beginner. It's level 39, so a more beginner player might not be, but that's actually mostly inconsequential here. You're gonna find out why pretty soon. But also, while you might be like, hey, wouldn't a beginner be the one with like the 1400 CP and the expert is the one using maybe like close to 3000 CP on their Pokemon? You're actually gonna find out why that may not be the case as well. I guess we could call this first point like section 1, but this is one of the most important things, is that you want to understand Giovanni's team, so his choice of Pokemon, and especially their movesets. This point is almost no better displayed than by the Persian. Giovanni always has that Persian in the first spot, but really that latter point about the moves that Giovanni's Pokemon are using, that really is super important. So you're actually going to see in this video, both of these Persians right here, they are going to be using Scratch. That is a normal type attack, meaning like the Pokemon typing, right? Because Persian can also have Feint Attack, which is a dark type attack, and so I know a lot of the times people just think like, I'm going to use any fighting type Pokemon and it should win. Persian's only weakness is fighting, so like on that principle it's good, but you're gonna see in the video that Machamp, for example, is actually gonna have a harder time despite having a higher power level than the Annihilate that we're about to see. And don't worry, I'm gonna give you guys some other choices too, but there's a reason for that. So the first thing that we'll say is just that Machamp is a higher combat power, so the CP over there on the right, it's at 2487, and the Annihilate, it's at 1477, so obviously CP much lower, but the Machamp is actually gonna go down for two reasons. So even being at a higher combat power, you would think like, okay, this is going to be a cakewalk. I think it would be if that Persian was using Feint Attack, right? Because Machamp would resist that. Annihilate would actually have a little bit of a problem because Ghost-type Pokemon they're vulnerable to Dark-type attacks, but the good news, I guess, is that Annihilate is part fighting as well, so it just kind of neutralizes that out, whereas Machamp would resist that. But another fault of our beginner over there, we've intentionally done this, okay? So like this is all hypothetical scenarios I've purposely set up. These are intentional. But the Machamp has the charge attack of close combat, and so I would not recommend this at all for two reasons. One, you're gonna see every time that close combat is used, the defense of your Machamp would harshly fall, so that's a guaranteed outcome. It's going to happen. But it also takes more energy in general to generate before you can use that attack, close combat, than for instance if the Machamp had Cross Chop. That's the move that I would recommend. Now Annihilate over there on the other side, it's set up properly to go against a Persian with Scratch. Again, your Annihilate could be like 2000, as close to 3000 CP as you want to get it, you know, whatever you can afford. But an expert player using it at 1477 might realize like, hey, that normal typing of Scratch for Persian's attack, our Annihilate resists it so much being part Ghost that we actually had extra time where we didn't have to use our charge attack right away. You saw that the Machamp, it tried to use close combat as it like pretty much as soon as we got it, whereas Annihilate, we could actually overcharge, we could overgenerate by just continuously using fast attacks. And then when it got to the point of kind of danger where it was like, okay, another Scratch or two and we're dead, the expert player would then be able to use Rage Fist. Obviously Persian, it's gonna shield it twice, but you saw we actually broke both of those shields, whereas the beginner player was only able to burn one of Persian's shields, and the Machamp actually fainted. So the Annihilate is actually going to proceed to the next fight as well, whereas Machamp didn't even make it. One thing I'll tell people, I obviously love it if you subscribe and watch these. You don't have to, I'm not forcing anybody, but one benefit I think for this channel and doing so is I'm always uploading multiple videos for Giovanni, so like this will help you kind of tackle it from all the different scenarios that he could throw at you. That's one thing, but also like if you want to see the Persian with Feint Attack, you know, we have a video for that, and it'll also show you more options that you can use in the battle. But again, I really want to emphasize that it's much more important to adapt on the fly, you know? Keep section 1 in mind that you do need to understand to adjust the fight based on which Pokemon Giovanni's using and which movesets they've got. And so, section 2 will be really fast. It's just to kind of mention budget-friendly options and scaling CP, we'll call it. The expert account, let's consider that they sort of have the ability to pick whichever Pokemon counters they want, you know? Like, it's hard for me to address every single player of Pokemon Go, right? Like, some people are rural, and some people are experts, some people are beginners, some people have a vibrant raiding scene, or, you know, whatever. Like, you don't know when people started or not. And so because Giovanni's current lineup ends with Giratina right now as I record this video, again, you may be able to use this in future fights as well, but I'm just gonna call to these other videos that I've so far uploaded on the channel at the time of this recording. Please see them to get some more options, but also other Pokemon you can use if, say, you could use legendaries, which, by the way, whenever I've done this format of like beginner and expert accounts, oh, I've gotten slaughtered for showing any kind of legendary. And it's like, you know, I gotta push back a little bit and say that even beginners can have a legendary Pokemon. Sometimes they've given them away in the past, depending on when you've used them, depending on when you were playing, but also just merely fighting Team Go Rocket, shadow raids, regular raids, things like that. There have been special researches. You know, you might have done a quest line that led to a mythical, but also, of course, like I said, some experts have trouble dealing with Giovanni, and so this is also for you. But if a Persian has Scratch instead of Feint Attack, you could use Giratina, usually the altered form, kind of better with a full dragon moveset. You could use Terrakion, also Cobalion, both of those, you know, because Cobalion's Steel, Terrakion Rock, they will resist Scratch. Scratch is normal type. Yeah, just make sure they got some fighting moves in there, double kick, you know, Sacred Sword, etc. And so I hope it's fine. I have some notes in front of me just in case you're like, he keeps looking down. I do think it's worth reiterating that across any of these videos, you know, you could be using a lot of the same options that I do, but increase them. You know, like I alter my Pokemon to be below 1500 CP, and so you could again be using yours as close to full power as you can afford. So hopefully that means that you kind of can do the battle more quickly and easily than, for instance, you see my videos handling it. Though the most important thing is always just to remember, you still have to always address the fight based on what Giovanni's throwing at you, to go back to section 1, but we'll give this one last piece of info right here. CP scaling, so Team Go Rocket's CP will adjust, or it will scale with the player's trainer level. So an example might be like if you're level 50, you're going to be fighting the highest CP amount opponents that you can fight. You could compare it to like a level 30 or something. If we were to use today's example, a level 39 trainer is going to fight a Persian that has like 69, 66, I think was the CP amount, whereas just going up to level 40, the Persian is then at 73, 63. So again, it scales based on what your trainer level is, but my videos and my like strategies are just to ensure that they can apply to everybody. But let's move it on to section 3 here. This is a really good one. I think this can help so many people if you don't know about it. Mastering stun time and chaining attacks. So hopefully you guys noticed, but I'm gonna point it out here. Every single time that you or they, Team Go Rocket, uses a charge attack, or whenever a Pokemon faints or just like gets switched out, manually switching, you're gonna see that Team Go Rocket's Pokemon will stand still. This goes for any Team Go Rocket fight, Grunts, Leaders, Giovanni. So let's look at it. We'll zoom into one account for this. So notice here, a charge attack is gonna happen, and so it doesn't matter if it's shielded or if it hits. Look at that, it's practically like 1, 2, 3. You can get like 3 attacks in on this Rhyperior. You saw Excadrill. That was amazing. Like 3 attacks is actually pretty great, and in this case against this Rhyperior, I'll say you can actually get in 4 attacks before that Rhyperior even hits you. We should talk about Rhyperior here in a second, a little bit more in depth, but so whenever there is a charge attack from either side, or a Pokemon fainting or switching, I like to call that time where there's just like stagnation, doing nothing from Team Rocket. I call it stun time, or the stagnation period. And that time of inactivity, you should just only be using fast attacks to get free hits, you could call it. So that's going to generate extra energy for you. So again, while that's time that your opponent is doing nothing, take advantage, man. We can also rewind, because this is something that you can use if you're a beginner and didn't know this, but experts will use it really every single fight that you struggle with. I do it every single fight, even if I don't struggle. We'll go back to the very beginning. You'll see that our beginner on the right had Gardevoir, and our expert on the left had Machamp, but they immediately switched out. So on the right, they switched to Machamp. On the left, they switched to Annihilate. And so you saw that already stopped the Persian's Scratch attack, which is, again, super fast and ferocious. It's like one of the best things you can do is just stop it dead in its tracks so you can get free hits. So like I say, I'll reiterate the point that you should would kind of just switch right away. So it's a great way to exploit that stun time for an immediate advantage. And so, in general, I kind of call this like chaining attacks, but the reason that we're only using those fast moves is because we're generating that energy to prepare for another charge attack. So it's like, boom, charge attack, there's going to be a stagnation period for the enemy, and then right when they're about to hit you again, you can have a charge attack ready. But if you continuously just do this over and over again, it's like Team Go Rocket can hardly move sometimes. And so that's why especially I like to pick a fast attack that will generate a lot of energy per hit, and then charge attacks that don't really take a lot of energy to fire off. Our Annihilate was really good at that. Excadrill, not too bad. I mean, Drill Run takes a little bit more energy, but it's alright. And just one last thing to mention about Rhyperior before we move on to the next section. Anytime that you're going up against Rhyperior, it can often be seen in Giovanni's middle spot across any of its lineups. You know, in the whole history of Giovanni being in this game almost, Rhyperior has been able to be a potential middle spot Pokemon for a long time. So just know that being that it's ground and rock type, you can potentially use a water or a grass type Pokemon to deal kind of that doubly super effective damage, right? So like Excadrill in this case, or Machamp using ground, using fighting, those are super effective attacks against Rhyperior, but that's 160% damage. That's just normal super effectiveness, whereas you could say that doubly super effective or whatever, it's 256% super effective. Against Rhyperior would be grass or water. I often opt for grass just because if Rhyperior was using Mud Slap as its fast attack, your grass is going to resist that. So again, you always want to try to kind of have this formula of a Pokemon that will deal super effective damage, but also at the same time simultaneously resist the typing of the fast move of your opponent. So here, just kind of speaking of charge attacks, that'll take us to section 4. Experts will often have this already, so you'll see it on our left side. With most of the Pokemon, you're going to see that the expert has 2 charge attacks. First off, the way to do this is you just scroll down on your Pokemon's page, you go to where it says new attack, and it will cost Stardust and Candy, but that will allow you to have a second attack for their charge attack. Annihilate, for example, it had Rage Fist and Night Slash for our expert. I don't think our beginner had any that had 2 charge attacks. You can also, of course, use a charge TM to then get you whichever attack that you're kind of looking for. But yeah, sometimes people use this for PvP, right? In the Go Battle League, if you're doing that, I never touch PvP myself, but it's like really advantageous, right? But also in Team Go Rocket. So I know, section 4, kind of quick, but let's go ahead and move on to our final section right here. Battle outcomes and why they happened this way. You're gonna notice by the end of this, both battles were actually a little bit too close for comfort, to be honest. Sometimes like 1 or 2 hits away, you know, at least our beginner had a little bit more HP on their Pokemon. Despite having really vastly different Pokemon choices and power levels, I think it's worth just re-mentioning that the expert did have lower CP. You know, those Pokemon at a higher CP would have had a much easier outcome, but the expert can adapt and shift that and still win even though their Pokemon are lower, right? Whereas when you contrast that with the beginner and them having like less optimized picks but still effective choices, this will demonstrate that like strategy can overcome just sort of raw power or out-muscling sometimes, you know? I think sometimes it's easy for someone to come into my comment section and say like, bruh, just use a 3000 plus Dusk Mane, you know, or whatever, Necrozma, or just mention some kind of like legendary or mythical or mega Pokemon, and it's like everybody comes from a different spot. And also I don't think that would make a very interesting video, you know? It's like, okay, we just kind of like solo with this one Pokemon, boom, it's done. But that's why I always, again, I give you guys multiple videos, right? Because we could show that perspective off while showing like the expert winning at a low CP amount or whatever, you know? And we've never used Ursa Ring across these videos, so I find that really interesting, you know? Somebody may have that Ursa Ring that they had from Community Day or whatever. It's a very accessible Pokemon for people, but an expert can show you how an Ursa Ring could take down most of the Giratina, at least, at 1487. They went against a Giratina that had Shadow Claw, you know, if it was against Giratina with Dragon Breath, for example, the result could be quite different. Very likely, actually. But okay, that was like a lot of information, so let's just have a summary appear on screen in text right here. I'll just end off by saying that I encourage you guys to try these out, but also watch those other videos if you're kind of needing more options, other strategy talk, absorb it all. Please feel free to, of course, like and comment if you want to help me, but subscribe only if you need to or want to. And hey, why not click an end screen on screen now to catch another video? And thanks for viewing.